defying death.
Phew, that was close. A small private jet miraculously survived after it was flipped over and plunged 10,000 feet. The cause? Getting caught in turbulence from a passing superjumbo jet. At around 8:40 a.m. on January 7th, the Bombardier Challenger 604, with 9 passengers on board, was flying over the Arabian Sea, headed from the Maldives to Abu Dhabi. That's when it encountered an Emirates Airbus A380 en route from Dubai to Sydney. As the private jet flew underneath the double-decker Airbus, it was hit by the much larger plane's wake turbulence. The turbulence flipped the small jet over 5 times, subjecting those inside to strong G-forces and injuring several. The crew used raw muscle force to manually stabilize the jet, restart the engines, and divert the flight to Oman for an emergency landing. Several passengers were taken to hospital, one with serious injuries. The private jet, operated by German carrier MHS Aviation, suffered such extensive damage that it had to be written off. Germany's Federal Bureau of Aircraft Accident Investigation is leading a probe into the incident. Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews. They say flying is safer than driving, but airplane crashes seem to happen more often than they should.
At least 12 dead after TransAsia flight crashes into Taipei's Geelong River. At least 12 people are confirmed dead after a TransAsia ATR 72600 crashed into the Geelong River in New Taipei City on Wednesday morning. Flight GE235 had taken off only moments before the pilot transmitted a mayday call to report engine failure. Air traffic control lost contact with the plane at 10:55 a.m. Many of the 58 people on board, including 5 crew and 2 children, were able to exit the wreckage and swim to the riverbank. The French-made twin prop had just taken off from Taipei's Songshan Airport, crashing 5 minutes into its planned 55-minute journey to Taiwan's Jinmen Island, just off China's coast. Rescue crews were scrambled to the river, and machinery has been deployed to help emergency services cut into the fuselage and get access to those still trapped inside the partially submerged plane. The driver of the taxi struck by the doomed plane as it clipped the bridge has survived.
Bird's body breaks plane's nose breaks bird's life. A Turkish Airlines Boeing 737-800 was left with a bend in its beak after a bird strike. Luckily for the 125 passengers on board, flying from Istanbul to Nevşehir, the plane landed safely. Pictures of the airplane taken after landing shows considerable blood splatter as well as the impressive level of damage to the nose cone. Damage to the nose area of an airplane is common in most aeronautical impacts, but not fatal to the plane. Birds can strike the nose, wings, or hull without posing a risk to the plane and its passengers. But bird strikes to the engine area are more critical, as the U.S. Airways Flight 1549 reminded us all back in January 2009.
Singapore Airlines flight sucks baggage container into engine at Changi Airport. A Singapore Airlines Boeing 777 plane sucked in an empty baggage container into one of its engines at Singapore Changi Airport last week. Flight SQ421 had arrived in Singapore from Mumbai on the afternoon of December 19th. The plane was taxiing toward the gate when an LD3 container next to the jetway got sucked into one of its engines. Passengers were about to leave the plane to catch another flight when the accident happened. According to Singapore Airlines, no injury were reported on the ground or on board the plane. Police are currently investigating the incident.
Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews.
Math professor thinks he may have solved MH370 mystery. A new study by a team of researchers, led by Professor Gong Chen at Texas A&M University in Qatar, proposes an answer to the mysterious disappearance of Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. The study suggests that the plane may have entered the water at an angle of close to 90 degrees, with the large, heavy portions of the plane, notably the wings, breaking off on impact. This model suggests the plane sank belly up, with the fuselage intact, and minimal creation and spread of debris. The heavier portions of the plane sank directly to the bottom of the ocean. The team, led by Professor Gong Chen at Texas A&M University in Qatar, ran 5 different landing scenarios, including one replicating the Miracle on the Hudson landing in 2009. Chen considered the Hudson glide ditching approach an unlikely outcome given the higher rate of survivability and creation of larger debris fields on failure. The flat landing was ruled out as it would have caused the plane to bounce, breaking up the fuselage and creating a wide path of debris and oil. Chen's team also dismissed a less dramatic nose-first diving entry, as the stress placed on the plane by impact would also have ruptured large sections of the plane. However, the report stressed that no conclusion on MH370's fate could truly be reached until the plane's black box is located and decoded.
Airborne passenger cracks Miami-bound flight ceiling. There's turbulence. And then there's a kind of turbulence that quite literally sends passengers airborne, the latter of which being the variety experienced by those unfortunate enough to be aboard a recent American Airlines flight that saw 5 injured. Despite the fact that the seatbelt sign was on, passengers and even the pilots aboard Flight 982 had no idea what was in store for them as they made their way from Grenada to Miami Thursday morning. They were initially greeted by some slight rumbling. Airborne passenger cracks Miami-bound flight ceiling. There's turbulence. And then there's a kind of turbulence that quite literally sends passengers airborne, the latter of which being the variety experienced by those unfortunate enough to be aboard a recent American Airlines flight that saw 5 injured. Despite the fact that the seatbelt sign was on, passengers and even the pilots aboard Flight 982 had no idea what was in store for them as they made their way from Grenada to Miami Thursday morning. They were initially greeted by some slight rumbling, apparently without incident. When the turbulence came back to rear its ugly head, though, it struck one sleeping non-seat.
Man sucked out of gaping hole in plane falls to his death. A man is believed to have fallen to his death after being sucked out of a gaping hole in the fuselage of a Daallo Airlines aircraft, just minutes after the plane took off from Mogadishu. Daallo Airlines Flight D3159 was carrying 74 people when it departed from Mogadishu, bound for Djibouti on Tuesday. Just 5 minutes after takeoff, passengers heard a loud bang, and a burning man was reportedly sucked out of a hole in the fuselage near the right wing. Eyewitnesses said they saw the charred body of a man falling to earth. 2 passengers were also injured in the accident. Footage uploaded to Facebook shows people in the cabin wearing oxygen masks and sitting calmly as the plane continues its flight, all while strong winds blow through the hole in the aircraft. Passengers were moved to the front and back of the plane away from the hole. The aircraft landed safely back in Mogadishu. It is unclear if a bomb caused the damage. Somali security forces are investigating the cause of the incident.